Hey everybody, Austin here with a little bit of bad news up top. Totally my fault, I take 100% of the blame, but we did have some technical issues with the video on this record and ended up losing all of the footage past about the 10-minute mark. The audio sounds totally fine, no issues there, that's a whole separate system, but I just wanted to let everybody know that is the situation here. Still going to include clips from the film about what we're talking about throughout this, but you won't be able to look at our pretty faces really past the top of the show discussion. So it's unfortunate. We know why it happened and have taken steps to avoid that the issue in future recordings, but it is what it is on this one, and I apologize for that. Thank you everybody for your understanding.
Dragonclaw, wing and scale. Come now, let's examine a tale of the greatest beast ever considered. Another episode of Big Flying Lizards.
Jack Black.
What a guy.
What a guy. I didn't know this. This was his fourth movie he'd ever done. He was young. He had a unibrow.
He's not bad in this.
He's not bad.
I don't think he's the problem.
He's definitely Austin. There's no problem. What are you talking about? But
interesting.
We'll dive into that a little bit. But what I really want to dive into is Jack Black. I feel like there's been some Jack Black slander going around, and I don't know if it's warranted. It might be. We had a conversation behind the paywall, aka off camera.
Not the first time you've said that. We don't have any paid products.
Not that people know about.
Are you producing a behind the scenes documentary I'm unaware of?
Jack Black.
Okay.
We've had the conversation that Jack Black may be in his selling out phase right now, where
a little bit.
He's just like, okay, that's some money. I'll do it. I don't care. But I feel like because of that, he's getting a little bit of hate, because I've seen that they've labeled him very similarly. If some people say if they see Jack Black in a movie, that's like an indication that they don't want to go see it. But there's been some bangers. Jack Black's been in some good movies.
Yes.
So what I want to know, Austin, what are your 3 favorite Jack Black movies that he has starred in or featured in? And it doesn't have to be in order of favorite to least favorite. I just want to know.
Okay, top 3, order not considered. Definitely High Fidelity, which was like a big breakout role for him. So that's 2000, where that's like the Record Store movie.
I don't think I've seen it.
No, I don't. You would have seen. I would have shown it to you if it had entered your life. But he's like one of the like lower paid employees, and he's just a total jackass the entire time.
Fair.
Like taking records out of people's hands. Like, oh, you don't want that shit. Like, come over here. There's a really funny extended bit at the end where there's one guy who's just like really, really gullible and suggestible. So he's just like loading him up. He's like, oh, you don't have blonde on blonde? It's going to be okay. He's excellent in that. Also, Bernie's fantastic.
I've heard.
The Richard Linklater joint. And I won't say any more than that, other than it's just really fun and he's great in it. I think that kind of closed out his great era. Ooh, a lot of other ways you could go for a 3, because those first 2 are a lock. On the third one, I think I'm just going to go ahead and say Kung Fu Panda 1.
That's solid. I have not seen 2 of them, but solid.
There are 4 now.
There are 4 now.
Yes.
What's the 4th?
I thought you were talking about the Kung Fu Panda movies. There are 4 of those.
Okay, I was like, Austin, I asked you for 3, you're bringing 4. I see how it is.
And maybe I'm forgetting something, but you want to hit the audience with any... Oh, you're a 3.
Okay.
Regardless,
so
maybe there'll be overlap, maybe not. Let's find out.
There's not, actually, which I think that just shows to what he's done. And I think it also is 3 where one, he's the star, another one where he's one of the co-stars, and the third one, he's a background character. I'm not saying that I like the third one, I just like the movie in general, but he's in it.
Waterworld with Kevin Costner.
You stole it from me. But the first one that he's the star of, I'm always going to love School of Rock. I really enjoyed.
He's so good in that movie.
He really is.
Regardless of how you feel about it, that's like a role made for him and nobody else.
Exactly. And he just is so great. And that was my first exposure to Jack Black, where I'm like, oh, this is Jack Black. The second movie you have shown me, Tropic Thunder.
Ooh, that should have been mine.
I was like, ha, got it. He's good at it. But everybody's good in it too.
Tropic Thunder is like an all-timer comedy for me. I can't believe that slipped my, because there are so many great comedic performances in that.
He's a co-star.
Ben Stiller, or who? Oh, no.
Robert Downey Jr.
yes, of course. But I was gonna say the director who gets blown up.
Oh, I don't
Steve
know.
Coogan is low key fantastic in that one.
There's no weak links in that movie.
Not a one.
Now, this third one is going to be a little bit of a curveball because he's a very minor role in this film, but I just love the film and it's such a big part of my childhood. But Ice Age.
Oh no.
I enjoyed the Ice Age.
You like Ice Age?
I like Ice Age.
Ice Age is bad.
I know it's bad, but I like it.
You need to see more Jack Black movies, my friend. And I know for a fact that you've seen Nacho Libre more than once, and Nacho Libre is 3 times the movie that Ice Age is.
But Ice Age is more... I've only seen Nacho Libre like twice. I've seen Ice Age a dozen times at least.
Well, I don't know how that's translating to a better movie, other than I guess your stamp of approval,
which is all that matters.
I'll give you a second here, Bryce. 15 seconds. What do you like about Ice Age?
It's fun.
I'm gonna need a lot more than that. I find the animation style of the Ice Age movies kind of hideous. Again,
it's just sort of a nostalgia thing. Like, I just enjoyed Ice Age. Well, for one, you know this. I grew up on Everybody Loves Raymond. I don't know why that was such a important movie to my parents, but they loved watching Everybody Loves Raymond. Manny is Raymond. And so I was like, oh, we know that guy. And I mean, I don't know. It was just a fun movie. The soundtrack's not bad.
I don't even remember it having a soundtrack. Like original songs?
I don't know. Austin, I asked you, you asked me. That's how we got here.
Okay, well, in my opinion, there's really no need for an Ice Age in a world where we already have Monsters, Inc. But, you know, it's out there, and you can keep rewatching it.
I haven't rewatched it in a few years, but no dragons.
No dragons. Yeah, we're not going to stretch big. Oh, my goodness. Oh, I just hate thinking about Ice Age. Welcome to Big Flying Wizards, everybody. My name is Austin, and across from me is the #1 Ice Age fan, Mr. Bryce Wilson.
Hi. Hello.
Bryce, how you doing today?
Dandy.
And what are we doing today?
Austin, we're talking dragons.
We sure are.
Ugly ass dragons.
Specifically,
we are talking the NeverEnding Story 3, the conclusion to our trilogy.
A movie so bad that it ended the NeverEnding Story.
I'm going to say something a little controversial, Austin. This movie is worse than NeverEnding Story 2. I think I prefer this one, though. It's
oh, dear. I'm with you on that. NeverEnding Story 2, while not a great film, is objectively a higher quality film than this one. But I also am so excited to talk about this movie because this movie gets weird and makes some very odd choices.
Which makes it interesting.
Precisely. So should we just jump right in? Was that enough Jack Black talk?
I feel like that was a lot of Jack Black talk. Just right off the top, we're still in the process of growing this podcast. So we're still working on the format. We appreciate you guys being patient with us as we do it. We did it last time where we just explained the film right all up at the top and had a discussion after that. We're going to try to do more of a hybrid where we'll go over sections of the movie and explain it from there. But before we start off on that, I think it's only appropriate that you, Mr. Snyder.
Yes. So just a quick overview, synopsis, a little bit of context on the NeverEnding Story 3.
Mm-hmm.
And then we discussed it. I think last week was a little bit of an overcorrection. So we're splitting the diff here, and you'll be able to follow along. I think it's going to be good.
Yeah, we'll get it.
The NeverEnding Story 3 is a family fantasy feature that once again returns Bastian to the world of Fantasia. Kind of. This time, he's there to recruit a group of monstrosities to help him stop a group of bullies from ruining his life and possibly all of Fantasia. Also, his father has remarried, and things are not going well with Bastian's new stepsister, Nicole. The film was directed by Peter MacDonald and received a limited release in the United States on February 2nd, 1996, almost a year and a half after it was distributed in Germany, but the initial reaction was so negative that the studio did little to promote it in the States further past that point. Indeed, The NeverEnding Story 3 was completely panned at the time by critics, fans, and even some of those involved in the production. But what did you think of The NeverEnding Story in 2024, Bryce?
Like I said, it's not a good movie, but I enjoyed it a lot more than watching NeverEnding Story 2. I feel like they took it in some weird directions that were sort of fun. I feel like when I was watching it, they sort of recognized that they're like, okay, we got one last shot. Let's have fun with it.
One last job.
Yeah, one last job.
One last rodeo.
We're not going to get another one, so let's get Jack Black to be a little weird in it.
Now, because there's actually some money here. And sometimes it can be hard to pin down these things. Definitely a budget drop from the first two movies.
Yeah.
But for all of the TV movie energy around this film, it will suddenly have a scene or an element. They're like, no, that's a real movie.
Yeah.
Like a lot of the creature effects.
I was going to say, with the exception of Rockbiter and Falkor, all the other things seem to get upgrades.
In general, and this movie is Jim Henson's Creature Shop.
Oh, really?
Which is, he had passed by that point in time, but it's his company who are the very best of the best when it comes to doing this kind of work.
Falkor.
Okay, so let's just get into Falkor for a little bit.
Well, I feel like we have to save that for the end of the podcast.
Yes, because we are doing a Falkor grade, but just for clarity, because we might be dogging him a little throughout this episode. Falkor got a redesign in this movie that I am not a fan of.
No.
It's a little odd. He's turned. Also, his voice is radically different. His personality has undergone some adjustments as well.
I think a character said it best that that's not a dragon. That's an overgrown pig poodle.
I couldn't have said it better than myself. Let's just that's the subheading on this grade we're gonna give him at the end. Now, not a fan of the actual redesign, which again we'll dig into at the end of this when we do a grade for Falkor, considering all three films from the trilogy. Unfortunately for Falkor, but the actual puppetry and the effects, I think, were pretty good in this. I would say they were on the same level as 2, maybe a little smoother in some instances.
I felt like even though Rockbiter didn't look nearly as good,
he's lost a lot of weight.
He's lost a lot of height too. But I feel like the puppetry there looked a lot better. Like, even though his design looked terrible, in my opinion,
and I hate him.
Rockbiter wasn't bad in the first one.
Rockbiter was like my favorite character in the first one, which is why it's such a betrayal that in the second one, it's the exact same creature design, but a totally different voice.
Yeah.
Which was odd and uncomfortable, and I didn't like that. This is a totally different entity going into the third, which I suppose is maybe more forgivable, but I'm just going to say right now, did not care for the direction. He has a very different voice, very different design, very different outlook on life, it would seem.
There's a lot of things that I've struggled with this movie, but I feel like I'm a little more forgiving than I was in the second one, because the second one was just just boring in my opinion compared to what was going on in this.
This one, while again, and this is the last I'll say, objectively an inferior film, it has some zip to it.
Yes.
It's a tighter runtime, and it has a lot of like in and out of each scene. And it is sort of that TV movie thing where it just seems like they were like getting through the scenes as quickly as they possibly could.
Yeah.
But you'll also notice that a lot of the scenes, like with all the bullies, like they all like line up into position really quick. And there's a lot of like slapstick to this that does give it sort of a jolt to the actual pacing compared to the previous film.
And I don't know because I feel like Jack Black brings a lot of that sort of energy. Like, I don't know if Jack Black was necessarily, if this was what helped Jack Black get in that sort of direction of his comedy, or if he was influencing the film around him to get to that. Because
I feel like this is Exhibit A, that Jack Black's just always been like that.
Yeah. He's
Love the guy.
Exactly. And he's just always been sort of a goofball.
Totally. And we were saying that his current era is maybe him selling out a little bit. I will say Jack Black of 2024, that dude is living his absolute best life.
Oh yeah.
He dresses like a 14-year-old who won the lottery. He tours with his band singing his silly songs, while he is choosing projects that I could not be less interested in seeing, a la Jumanji, the Goosebumps movie, the Mario movie.
The Minecraft movie.
The Minecraft movie coming up. The reports I've heard out of those seem to indicate that he's like the silver lining, maybe the best part
he
of
gives
all
it
those
all.
projects.
He get full gas. And I just have to let you know on a little bad news, Austin.
Huh?
There's probably going to be a dragon in the Minecraft movie.
Oh, the Ender Dragon.
The Ender Dragon.
Oh, no. Listen, I've played a lot of Minecraft. Minecraft is like a top 3 video game of all time for me.
We created a world together during COVID.
We sure did. We should get back to that one day.
Someday. 10 years from now.
Lots of good times, lots of good memories to the Minecraft people. This movie looks awful.
Yeah.
I am scared of this film.
And we're going to have to watch it.
Okay. That's a problem for another day. Right now, we're dealing with this shitstorm.
Yeah. Do you want me to go ahead and dive on into the first chapter that will be covered?
Hit me with it.
So, we are introduced with an old man in the mountains reading from the NeverEnding Story. And he's explaining that the Nasties are coming. We had the nothing. We had the emptiness. Now we've got the Nasties.
Which, you talk about downgrades, because they kept the terminology similar to where, like, if you heard those three together, you're like, okay, maybe they're like a trio of cosmic entities. But no, those first two are. This third, just a high school bully.
Austin, out of those three, I feel like the most monstrous, most destructive, most horrible thing on the face of the planet, disobedient children, is the worst thing out of all of them.
Children, now you're using that word a little loosely.
They're children.
And the janitor does make a comment that's along the lines of like, how many times are you guys gonna repeat the 12th grade? But Jack Black, I believe was about 24 at the time of this film's production, and he's good in this. He looks 24.
Well, Bastian's supposed to be 13.
Okay, so the actor Jason James Richter, he was like 14, 15 during production, and he looks a little older than 13, but it's I buy that a lot sooner than I buy Jack Black and his leather-based street school gang.
Those children.
Well,
those children, the Nasties, are supposedly going to destroy Fantasia. And
it's a prophecy of sorts.
Exactly. So then we go in, and like you mentioned at the top, Bastian's father has remarried and supposedly forgotten everything about Fantasia that happened the year before.
And undergone extensive plastic surgery once again.
Yeah. And you find out that Bastian had to move, and they got moved to this new school. He has to go to a new school. His sister, sort of a mean girl.
Stepsister. They're moving in with his stepmom.
Yeah. Moving in with the stepmom. The sister is mean. They go to school together, and she sort of like leaves him out to dry for the Nasties, the bullies. And the bullies, they lock him in the basement for a little bit. The janitor comes down smoking a cigar, lets him out. What the bullies he rats him out, so they're going to get expelled. So they chase him. And sure enough, he goes to the library, and we meet Coreander, who's it finally happened. He got recasted.
Which, wait a second. Because that's something that we locked into talking about NeverEnding Story 2, that everybody else got recast except Coreander.
Yes.
So we're like, okay, maybe he's the linchpin.
Nope.
He's the connection.
Nope.
You'd think it'd be Bastian, but maybe it's Coreander. But then he gets recast in this one. So the continuity is just so beyond repairable or reconcilable at this point.
No, it really is. But in there, he finds the NeverEnding Story. He starts to read it, realizing that he's reading what's going on right then. The bullies come in, and he wishes himself into Fantasia. And that's where we're going to sort of stop and talk about this first section of the movie.
Right. So, already mentioned Coreander. The only other thing I'll say is, that's kind of a downgrade, dude. You used to own your own bookshop. Aren't you like a cosmic wizard entity, and now you're just working as a librarian at a high school, no less?
If Bastian is like the chosen one or whatever it is, like the wish granter, I mean, it makes sense to be close to him.
Yeah, because that is what this is all actually about.
And it's the same thing. He's like, you can't read this book.
You can't leave the library. It's too dangerous, Bastian.
If you leave the library, everything will get destroyed. But this Coreander was a serious downgrade, in my opinion.
The performance,
the actor was just not selling it. He seemed just like a librarian. He didn't seem like this cosmic traveler that he was in the first two.
I follow you. I'm not going to say he does a bad job, but it's a thankless role to get recast after the previous actor made such a mark in those first two movies. And he's like downplaying the curmudgeonly aspect, which I think is sort of a mistake, even though he does lead with the whole like, I'll do the shushing here, young man. That leaves really quick. And it really is just like dollar store, like generic brand Coreander.
Yeah, it really is.
Now Bastian, recasting.
I feel like he got a little bit of an upgrade.
I'm still gonna say that Jonathan Brandis of NeverEnding Story 2 is the best performance of the Bastians, but this kid ain't bad. He's probably second. And only by a small margin.
No, I think he did quite well, and for everything that he was required to do, like I feel like he even made scenes that I'm like, this is a little awkward. Like I didn't think it was awkward because of him. I just think the actions that were taking place seemed a little weird and awkward.
Yeah, he has the unfortunate fate of just being in the worst movie as well, which colors the opinion.
Yeah.
So, maybe he deserves a little extra credit.
Yeah. But I just have to say, I don't know what it is about this song, but I love it whenever it pops up in a movie, and that's Kiss from a Rose by Seal.
Yeah, because that's part of the introduction with his stepsister. She's cool. She listens to cool bands.
Like Seal.
Like Seal.
And Bastian, not cool.
Not cool. He likes books.
He reads Treasure Island.
Oh my God. So I don't know why this bugs me so much, because he's talking to Coreander and he pulls Treasure Island off the shelf and he's like, oh, wow, Treasure Island. I remember this from your shop. But if you actually remember the first movie, Treasure Island is one of the books that he lists off as having already read to impress Coreander. So he's read that before he ever met the man.
Maybe he lied. To gain entry into his bookshop.
No. There is no fixing this continuity. It seems like such an obvious oversight. Like so many other books you could have chosen. Again, like that is kind of a low blow to say like, oh, continuity's off, like movie's unwatchable. But this movie doesn't feel like it really understands the franchise or what people like about it or what they should be doing with these characters.
I agree. All I think they were trying to do was relay that all of his books that were in the bookshop have moved to the library now, and they couldn't just be like, oh, the NeverEnding Story. Like, they had to build up to it.
So what a weird high school then, that like they hire this like prestigious librarian who then brings his collection of books to the high school.
This is what New York gets, Austin. These New Yorkers are getting this high class education system where they're contracting their librarians, independent contractors.
And for some reason, the like teen section is just like a teeny little like off to the side, even though it's an academic study. Did he have that many like academic books to begin with? I'm overthinking it, aren't I?
Oh, well, to quote what you said about Damsel, there's not a lot in here to make you think.
I do enjoy Bastian's Goku hair on the first day of school.
Well,
it is kind of sad to see that he did it to himself, because he seems all in on it for a second and then he gets embarrassed. I thought it looked sick.
I thought he looked fine before. But maybe that just shows how uncool I
am. What else here?
I know I mentioned it before, but I love that the janitor is straight up just smoking the butt of a cigar. Like not even
90s.
not even a cigarette. It's like straight up a cigar. And he's like biting into it anime style.
Yeah, a lot of personality to this new high school. I keep saying high school. I feel like it's supposed to be, but also he's 13. Does that put him in junior high?
I think so.
I think Bastian's supposed to be in high school at this point.
Maybe because he's 13. I just don't know if
maybe he's an old 13.
It's not like he was skipping math class. He didn't move up in the ranks.
If anything, he got held back. Like, that's why he looks so old. Him and what's his name? Skip? Or
Sick.
Sick?
I think it's Sick.
I'll get that for you. But maybe
Slip.
We were both wrong.
We were slipping up.
You saved it. But yeah, that's maybe they could have connected on that their academic shortcomings.
The thing is, I actually felt like when they were making fun of his name being Balthazar, I'm like, are you kidding me? You guys all look like you worship Balthazar. What are you guys talking about right now?
But I mean, the movie has to happen.
Yeah.
So Yeah, but the last thing that I'll say on this section on the subject of bullies is this kid's still dealing with bullies.
Yeah,
like Bastian, who has now saved the magical realm of Fantasia twice, and by extension, our reality, is still putting up with bullies.
well, it's like the same idea with Percy Jackson. Like, he's over here, he's like killed the god, like he's fought gods and all this shit, and still has to deal with like summer camp issues.
Then again, it is like that's something that I love about like Spider-Man, for example, and it's the magic of a superhero story is that they are the hero in the one context, but then they get to have a real life and childhood once they return home. It's like Hannah Montana.
Except for being a pop star, Bastian is literally the wish giver and the wish maker.
So does he have the Orin at this point?
Like that's why he has to go to
okay, so he gets the NeverEnding Story, the book, and he's like, okay, I can get into Fantasia again, get the Orin, talk to the Childlike Empress, and then I'll be able to solve all my problems.
I think we just want to jump into the next chapter because that's more.
I think we're there.
Okay, so once Bastian arrives, we meet the gnomes again.
Confirmed gnomes.
Confirmed
in this one.
Exactly. The engineer and the witch, which their names are
Engie and Urgle.
Yes, the most old person name.
and they've again recast. Everybody's recast.
Although I'll save it.
So I'd say that they've turned a lot more Irish.
Yes, very Irish. That's what living in the forest does to you. And while that's going on, the Nasties are looking and they're like, maybe he hid in one of these books. And sure enough, Slip, being the intellectual genius that he is, finds the NeverEnding Story and starts reading that everything's going on.
Which I feel like there was an opportunity there for it to be like the ring from Lord of the Rings, or like the medallions from like Curse of the Black Pearl, where it's like this powerful artifact that calls to the evil in him. But the way it's presented, he's more just like, oh, cool book. Whoa, that's us.
I would have preferred that direction, but it also limit on time. But I agree. They start reading, and apparently as the reader, you control what's going on. That's a new aspect of
and that wasn't really clear throughout, because it's like it feels like there's a limited degree to what you control. Or maybe it's like the like whoever is in possession of the book, the NeverEnding Story, has some degree of control over Fantasia and by extension the human world.
I don't know.
I'm a little confused.
I'm confused as well. It starts to be a little bit of a reunion, even though we've never met this tree person who somehow knows all pop culture references on Earth. Like. And then, of course, Falkor arrives, and I nearly threw my phone at that point when I saw him. They realize that the only way that they can fix it is they have to go to the Childlike Empress to get the Orin to go back. And they wish back, and they sort of assemble a team to do it. But the team... well, actually, it's originally just going to be Bastian, but then they're like, you have to wish harder. Here, this is how you do it. And they start connecting, and they form a chain, and then all these people end up, and they go to the real world.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I almost want to do a little bit of opposite what we did there. I want to sort of start with that, and I just want to pose a question for you. I was really hoping that we were going to go in a direction where all of them turned into humans and we got to see them as humans in the real world and experience that. Now, I know the movie would have been longer. What's your take on that?
As an adult, I think that could have been interesting, and I think that some talented character actors really could have done something there. as a kid, I think that the direction they take is a little more exciting. And I also have to accept that that is their pitch in this movie. And I think that that's the way that they are managing the fact that they have a lower budget. Is they're like, okay, we're going to focus in more on the creatures, but we're going to set a much more significant portion of the film in our world so that we can save money on the sets.
Gotcha. No, I think that's sort of where I stand, where it is more exciting. But it just, to me, like when you see Falkor flying up against, well, that's in the next section. Sorry. But what are your takes on this section?
Okay, so first of all, the transition effect. Anytime anybody transitions between the real world and Fantasia, horrible. They do this like it's like flashing and this super fast like zoom in, zoom out effect. It just looks terrible and cheap, and like the team on the day had to come up with something to represent that. So already not a fan of that. I guess we can also, once he gets to Fantasia, he meets, what's the tree guy's name? The Ent fellow. Barky. Barky is his name.
Okay, it's okay.
How imaginative.
Yeah, very. We love our German audience.
I do not like Barky. Barky is my favorite new character in the film. This guy is doing like a 90s Pacino impression. Where he's like, yeah, I'm Barky. Don't touch me. I'm 300 years old.
Why'd you go into Vegas if you're lucky?
And I'm legitimately want to ask you this because I might have missed something.
Yeah.
But how does Barky fit into this? Because at the very least, it seems like Urgel and NG do not like him, if not are like unaware of who he is.
If I understand it correctly, there was also when the Nasties got the book, they started like wishing, it's almost like they were wishing bad things to happen to Bastian in Fantasia or something.
They're willing it.
Yeah, something along those lines. And they like have fire flaming, like falling from the sky, Prince of Egypt.
Yeah. It's like just them being Nasties is turning Fantasia nasty. It doesn't make any sense at all.
They're giving power to all the nastiness when Bastian gave power to. Well, I'm blanking on his name. How can I blank on his name? Atreyu.
Yeah. Also, where's Atreyu?
He thought he could just take this movie off?
What happened to Atreyu?
I genuinely feel like it would have been a better movie if Atreyu was in it.
Yeah, okay, so what we do, here's the fix.
Well,
we cut Junior entirely and give his role, if you could call it that, to Atreyu.
We cut Junior, we cut Barky, we cut Falkor, we cut...
It's just two kids.
You know why? Actually, you know why Atreyu? You know why Atreyu was not in it? Because he would have killed the Nasties without even a hesitation.
We would have seen Atreyu actually put his combat skills to use.
He's the greatest warrior in Fantasia. You don't think he could have taken on those bullies? And
careful there, Bryce. Did you see Bastian's moves at the end of the film?
We're not there yet, Austin. We're not there yet. Ooh, there's a lot to say there.
Badass.
He's Chuck Norris.
Okay, so we get also the like a picture of the Rockbiter family. What were you gonna say?
I was gonna Barky. How he ties into all this. So there's fire that hits Barky, and his leaves burn off. And so he's sort of running, and Bastian, I think, either helped him or something along those lines. And Bastian was like, okay, sit. And he put the gnomes up in the nest on his head.
So the short of it is just he was there.
Yeah, he was there, and he's a way for the gnomes to get around.
Now, I do actually not mind the costume puppet whole getup on him. I think it's a cool look. It's kind of Ent-ish.
Yeah.
And as we've already said, Jim Henson's Creature Shop, pretty good work overall.
Yeah.
So that's also giving him the edge. I enjoy some of the pop culture references, even though all of these characters are terrible.
Yeah.
We also, in this whole like Avengers Assemble build up, we get a snapshot of the Rockbiter family, which is very wacky and odd. And on some level, I appreciate their commitment to the bit that like everything in their existence is rocks. Again, we said that's a little odd that their house is made of their flesh, but just ignore it. All of their voices were killing me.
Yeah.
Because Rockbiter has changed. In the first movie, it's beautiful. It's brilliant.
Yeah.
And he takes his time, and he's like, strong hands. And in the second one, it goes up an octave and a half, and the gravel's a little more, and he's like, Bastian, this is Junior, my son. And then this one, what's even going on here?
It's married life. That's what.
But we're seeing Junior, and Junior is speaking now, but Junior was killing me in this. I think Junior ranks among the most annoying characters I've ever had to sit through any film with.
Worse than Jar Jar Binks.
Worse than Jar Jar. We're on the same page with that.
Yeah, like literally the entire time I'm like, this creature is worse than useless.
Well, all of them are useless.
Yeah.
None of them actually do anything to help get the book or the Aran back, except for at the end, they're the people who like pick it up. But it's nothing specific to their characters or the decisions they make or their abilities. The movie is just designed to get these wacky characters into weird circumstances in our world.
Junior legitimately is like doesn't even help at the end.
He's an active problem.
Yeah.
He's a liability.
He's literally a toddler that's
Oh my God. And I won't even try and do an impression just because I found it so obnoxious.
Yeah.
But he's doing baby talk.
Yes.
Through the entire movie.
I hate baby talk.
Yes. And it's made even worse because it doesn't sound like a baby. It sounds like an adult doing baby talk.
Which is even worse than baby talk.
Oh my God. Oh, and the creature design, like, yes, Junior in NeverEnding Story 2 was super off-putting and weird, and I hated it. This is somehow more offensive to me. While, again, I do feel like the technical aspects, like the motion of it and the puppeteering of the expression is all that, is impressive.
Yeah.
It's just feeding into this whole like giant baby liability that they have to deal with. He also has a stone diaper around his bottom, which explain that to me.
I can't. Do
Rockbiters piss lava?
I hope so. I hope so.
That just came to me. Just want comment below.
Just comment below. Well, I feel like they were trying to go the Flintstones. They were like, I saw a lot of
all the Rockbiter stuff is very Flintstones.
I'm not gonna lie. I hate almost everything to deal with the Rockbiters, with the exception of the animated Rockbiter that was on their TV. Like, I was like, you know what? Like, I prefer this.
I do too. The last thing, so again, the commitment to the bit, like when he's packing, the daddy Rockbiter is like packing his suitcase to leave, and it's a rock suitcase just full of rocks. Like, that's kind of funny.
Yeah.
But there's also just one little aspect to their puppetry where they have like chompers as their teeth. So it's like they have like these rectangles, like a jack-o'-lantern almost.
Yeah.
But they like move in and out. If you focus in on it, it is a very like unsettling motion when it happens. Even though like their talking and communication is generally pretty fluid, I got the ick on that pretty bad.
I feel like that's something that's almost more like lore function than it is like
yeah. But that's just back to one of the things that I was complimenting the original NeverEnding Story, the first one, which is like 10 years prior to this one.
Yeah.
That they tackled the challenge of like, he's made of rock, so it can't look like he's like rubbery or like bendable. I think that they approached that challenge with a lot more grace in that first movie.
Yes. Anything else you want to mention about the Rockbiter family?
No. I might have more to say throughout the film, but Junior was the worst aspect to this movie for me. And that's talking about a movie that has a lot of problems.
Yes. Something that I had a little bit of an issue with, and I don't know if it's necessarily an issue that I've had, but I feel like, because I've had this thought in the back of my mind. What does the Childlike Empress actually do? Because for the first two movies, we're led to believe she's the most powerful person in the universe and can solve any problem. There has not been a time yet that she's been actually able to solve a problem.
Yeah, she's approaching like Princess Peach status here.
I don't understand it.
I tell you what she's been doing. Aging. For some reason.
Yeah, she's not childlike anymore. She's like teenage-like.
That's good one. I was led to believe that she was childlike in that she was like an immortal being who presented as a young girl, not that she was a young girl.
I think so, but I also think that they were like, we have to have her age up with Bastian.
But I feel like she's kind of leaped Bastian in this instance.
A little bit.
Then again, we are talking about that age where like all of the girls get taller before the boys do. So that could be all it is. My vote would have been to keep the Childlike Empress childlike, but here we are.
Yeah.
Also, explain this to me. How does one wish harder? Because as Bastian gets the R in, he's like, okay, I'm just going to wish to solve all the problems. And they're like, oh no, you need to wish harder, Bastian. And then there's something about like the like wish quota has been exceeded and it mixes up everything. This is as they're transporting everybody into reality. I think it's just them coming up against the problem that the second movie just chose to ignore, that throughout that entire film, Bastian has limitless power to solve any problems and just doesn't.
Yeah.
They're trying to put some rules on it now.
Yeah, I really think that that's what it comes down to, and it just doesn't translate well. Like, for the first movie, it sort of makes sense. Give him the ability to make whatever wish he wants. But they sort of just shot themselves in the foot where they didn't acknowledge the actual drawbacks that are in the book. And so now it's like, okay, we have to create some parameters that would make sense since we already made two movies. And like,
it's a mess.
It's a mess. Like there's another portion that I want to talk about that's in the last chapter.
Let's just jump there because I had the same thought.
Okay,
with
so
the shopping spree.
It's tied to that, yes. So the last section, the Nasties realize that the Orin is in the real world now, and that they want to get the Orin so they can make the world nasty or whatever it is.
They're just a bunch of nasty people. A bunch of bad seeds.
Just a couple of nasty people.
Which all that. So I know you're getting into the recap here, but the Nasties, great name, but also we already talked about they're not a cosmic entity, and it's weird, like that the movie's sort of positioning them like that. To me, nasty, that word kind of skirts being a sexual term. Agree or disagree?
I'm going to apply a little pushback. I feel like nasty has sort of turned into like a sexual term in the last decade to 15 years. Just sort of like how words have evolved and changed meanings. I know there's more dramatic versions, but I feel like nasty back in the 90s was like, that's gross, that's disgusting, rather than oh, she nasty.
Okay, maybe people who were there and had more developed brains could weigh in on this. Although I will say the like in the movie Do the Right Thing. Have you seen Do the Right Thing? Spike Lee?
Yes.
Good movie.
Yeah.
But when he's trying to get his girl to have sex with him, he keeps asking. He's like, yeah, when can we do the nasty eggs?
Okay, that's true.
So that's at least one instance that I know of. But just up top here, when the movie is, I don't know why I'm turning this around. That's not my note sheet. We're running digital today, baby. At the beginning, they're talking about like, and this is the story of how Bastian's gonna have to save the world from the Nasties. And then we're dropped into this young kid in a made-for-TV looking movie who's in a library, and I'm like, oh no, is this like a pro-abstinence like school feature?
No nasties.
Is this gonna start talking about like proper condom use?
That would have been a direction.
Thank you for going down this tangent with me.
That would have been a direction.
Just a little peek into my mind. Every time the nasties come up, I'm like, nice.
Well, going back to the outline of the story, Bastian comes back and he realizes that all of his friends have scattered except for Junior. He got stuck with Junior.
The worst what? Well, no, they have scattered, but Junior comes back to him first.
Oh, okay. I clearly...
No, I have a very, very specific note on that.
Okay. Well, and he has the Orin, and his stepsister is sort of like cueing in a little bit that weird things are going on, and eventually does discover the Orin and steals it and realizes that it does grant wishes and starts to abuse that power by going on a shopping.
Well, that considered, she keeps it pretty tight.
I want to dive more into it, but I'll finish the rundown. They're slowly coming together. Everybody's gathering up, and once they're all united together, the Orin is gone, and so they have to go to the mall. The Nasties steal the Orin and start making it essentially like a PG version of that Rick and Morty episode where the world goes evil because Rick, the evil extract of Rick, like the negative Rick. Essentially a PG version of that.
Rick and Morty, a show to one day be discussed on this show. I'm generally positive on. It has kind of a toxic fan base, but good show.
Good show.
Also, this movie's rated G. Just so you know.
G. Wow. Okay.
Yeah, first two were rated PG. This one's G.
They should have just killed Junior and just got away with it.
I'm just saying this is the G-rated version of the bit.
So the world's gone mad. They go and they address the Nasties essentially, and this is where Bastian fights Slick for the Orin, gets the Orin back. Slip. Slip and slip.
It's where he fights Freudian.
Yes. And they have their showdown. They get the Orin. They get everybody back to Fantasia. Fixes everything in the real world. And the movie closes where this is just the beginning of the story, when it really is the end of this story.
It's a pretty hard end.
It's a very hard cut, throw away the key end to the story.
Excellent on that recap. Thank you very much. If we may go back, though, to the beginning of that, where all of the creatures and Bastian getting transported to the real world.
Yes.
So everybody gets put in various places seemingly around the globe.
Yes.
So we see that Falkor almost causes a plane crash.
Yeah.
And the Barky is... he lands in a forest where the trees are being harvested. So he's like chainsaw murder, because the children watching this movie are going to know what that's a reference to.
Did you say chainsaw murder or chainsaw massacre?
He said massacre. And this is how I knew he landed somewhere separate. The Junior, he lands at Mount Rushmore, and he climbs up and takes a big old bite out of Washington's nose, and then, oh no, Junior's slipping. He's gonna fall, and he slides off the nose, but then Falkor catches him.
How did Falkor not break his back?
He even makes a comment. He's like, that's not gonna be good for my back, which is closer to how he talks. But Falkor's voice in the first movie, perfect. perfect. The second movie is kind of an approximation of the first movie, so
I hate it.
Forgivable. This movie,
Burn it.
What is going on? He has what is the cause of this? Because he reads like an imbecile.
Yeah.
Like his IQ's been cut in half for this one. Like how much luck has he been, or did he have a bad batch? Has he running out of luck?
It seems like he hasn't had any luck in this movie.
No. If anything, I'd say bad luck dragon.
Yeah. It's almost as if he's a giant pink poodle.
Which that was going to be my pitch, is that the Falkor in this movie is so radically different from the Falkor in the first two. I'm like, okay, we do a grade for Falkor in the first two movies, Falkor the Luck Dragon. We do a grade for Falkor in the third, Falkor the anti-luck dragon.
Austin, we made the bed. We have to lay in it.
And that was a conversation before the podcast started, and we're sticking to it. But again, just underlying that. Consider that the best thing that Falkor does is save Junior. He's like the villain of this movie to me all of a sudden.
Austin, I said it up top. Get rid of all of them. Bring back Atreyu.
One Atreyu greater than the entire creature cast of this film.
Yeah. Yeah.
Also, NG and Urgel are in like
the North Pole or something.
Yeah, it's snowy. That's all we know. And they have to mail themselves, which is kind of a funny idea, but it doesn't really pay off.
Yeah.
But slowly they're all getting back to Bastian and all this wackiness.
What is going on here? There's something. Somebody has all the appliance on in the kitchen. Oh.
Whoa.
Bastian's listening to loud music all the time.
Let me just say this. I feel like the first NeverEnding Story was made for families.
Yeah.
The second NeverEnding Story was made for children. The third NeverEnding Story was made for babies.
Yeah.
If that.
Yeah.
Because it is just like the broadest, like lowest common denominator excuse for humor.
Yes. It is. And bear with me. I'm going to float something at you, and I just want to hear if I'm the weird one here or not. But there was this weird... the relationship between Bastian and his stepsister Nicole, like, was really weird to me throughout the movie. Because, like, it's obviously trying to work towards, like, they're coming together as family. Like, they're accepting each other as family. But the way that they were going about it, especially in this third chapter, it felt more like they were going to end up in a relationship with each other. Like, to me, at least. Did you get that vibe?
I wasn't picking up on that. I could see how you got there, though. This movie doesn't have a lot of moves, and it's just kind of relying on, like, you know how movies go. Like, now they're going to make up.
Yeah.
Their whole bit is so forced. Like, I don't buy their beef.
No.
And I don't really buy their reconciliation at the end. I do buy Nicole's decision to use the most powerful artifact in the universe to go on a shopping spree.
Yeah. Well, here's what I really need to figure out, just concerning that. The Childlike Empress said specifically at the beginning of this chapter that Bastian could not use the Orin to wish for things outside of wishing people back.
Did she really?
Yeah.
Oh my God, that's so blatant.
Yeah. I'm like, okay, so
maybe
why?
That's just a Bastian rule.
But I'm
He's
like,
wished out, man. He almost lost his memory in the second movie.
does the machine still exist? Like, what's it?
None of this movie holds together.
Yeah.
And like another example, at the end of the movie, it's like how they beat the Nasties. Again, these are just bullies. Like, the big bad of this movie is just a group of high school bullies. And Nicole's reading from the book, and she's saying what happens. And then she's like, and then Bastian remembers his mad kung fu skills and then kicks their asses. And then he does. Like a la Neo in the Matrix when they just upload the fighting skills. He's, I know a kung fu. Bastian does that. So it's like, and that just happens. Like, what?
I know, like, I think this came out afterwards, but did you ever read Inkheart?
Of course. Oh my, I have said to myself after our last 2 records, I've been kicking myself. I'm like, oh man, didn't bring up Inkheart a single damn time. Many opportunities, so many parallels.
Like, it was giving me Inkheart vibes because it's sort of that idea is that the main character can read stuff into existence. And
yes, but
that's
not to pretend like Inkheart, the movie, is like this masterpiece or the book.
The book is good.
I didn't mind it when I read it as a kid. I remember being disappointed by the film.
Film was bad.
I haven't really thought about it since. That's a blast from the past. Went and saw that one with my dad. But in that story, book, movie, whatever, it's clear what the power is. Like, the lore is clarified. In this one, it's so amorphous, and like, if you have the book, you have the power, but you don't. But it doesn't really matter. And it's like, if you have the R and the wishes, some people can make wishes, but also there are limits, and you have to wish hard enough. It's a disaster, like, truly, and it doesn't have to hold together, but it seems like it's pretending like there's any coherence to this.
Austin, I literally just thought up on the spot a way that they could have done this, made sense, and made the movie better. What they could have done is, instead of the Nasties wishing all of those negative things to happen, the idea is our world can't handle more wishes. So for each wish that is made, more chaos is erupting in this world. So as she's like wishing for all these things, all the things that the Nasties end up wishing for is actually occurring because there's just that level of chaos. And then so she comes out of the store with all of the stuff she's bought, and the world's on fire, and the Nasties are like, okay, like, we just want to cause as much nastiness. And so they're trying to steal it just so they can wish for more things, but also cause chaos. And Bastian's there to be like, no, this isn't your fault. I should have trusted you. I should have told you about Fantasia. And
I like this so much better already. and it's not like, what I especially like is, I don't feel like you're radically changing the movie. I don't think you're like wishing for this hypothetical, like, you know, like, we like to be like, sometimes like, okay, yeah, well, what if they'd have done like the R-rated NeverEnding Story? Like, what would that look? That's ridiculous, and I don't think that's a valid critique of the film.
Yeah.
What you're talking about achieves everything that this movie seems to be going for so much cleaner.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I literally thought of it on the spot. I should have been a 90s movie writer.
This mind, guys.
They've got to preserve it. They got to study it.
I mean, that's kind of the movie.
Yeah, I
Any other elements you want to zoom in on?
I mean,
before we do the Falkor Dragon grade?
I still can't really. It just, again, I think it's because it was just so awkward. Like, it had that, again, like, I don't want to, like, it just really felt like at the end, they're like, I like you. But instead it's like, no, you're my brother and you're my sister. And then at the very end, they're like, you're dad to me, you're mom to me.
Oh, yeah. And then it's like, he's holding his child and like spinning. And the dad, he does about 3 too many spins at the end there. That it's like, no human being is acting this way.
Especially right when you were walking out on your wife.
Yeah. But not anymore, because the children?
Because hugs.
Because hugs.
Haven't anybody going through a divorce just thought about hugs? Like, dude, I should be a divorce counselor.
and you know what? A blessing to us all that you chose podcasting.
Podcasting and sports.
There's also a scene that I just love the way that it ends. The scene with Bastian and his dad, where Bastian's kind of going through it. And that's the odd thing about this. It's like the duality where, like, yes, he is like the great champion of Fantasia, but also he's just a kid that really doesn't have any abilities in this real world. So he's just kind of stuck hanging out at his house waiting for his magical friends to show up.
Yeah.
But he's there kind of moping, and his dad comes in and he's like, "Hey, what's going on, son? Is everything okay?" And Bastian is acting like he doesn't really want to talk to him. And then as his dad's leaving the room, he goes, "Dad, everything sucks, okay?" And then his dad turns back and he goes, "Okay." And then leaves. I'm like, there was your opening, man.
Bastian's dad is a bad dad.
Who are these parents, man? Although the dynamic between the stepmom and the dad is kind of it's useless. Like, it doesn't go anywhere.
Yeah.
But there's like where they don't know how to, like, what level is appropriate to discipline the other child that's not their biological child.
Yeah, like I have to say, I enjoy this approach to stepmother that they took, because typically I feel like they go with the evil stepmother or just like the super cold or stern one, while this one is just like, what's the best, like, awkward, just like that.
Yeah, which is more authentic. I liked that touch as well.
Yeah, I feel like that's more like you said, authentic. Like, that's probably what happens more often than not.
Or like when they lean into that. Like, that's a reoccurring thing. Like when he goes to the first day of school and he has the Goku hair.
Yeah,
and then he's like, "Do you have a comb? I need to fix it." And she's like, "I don't. But believe me, you look perfectly impressive."
which he did.
and that's sort of getting into what that sort of relationship is like. And while that has been some kind of elements in the first two movies, I feel like that in a way they land the family aspect stronger in NeverEnding Story 3.
Yes. Well, in the first one, there was no aspect other than like, my mom had a beautiful name.
and yeah, his distant father, they have a stern talk at the beginning. He's like, "No more missing school," never shows up again.
And then the second movie, the dad's like, "Fantasy is bad. Now I'm going to read fantasy."
Man, the journey of this man.
He got his hair back.
Like, I'm just imagining you do a supercut that's only this character from the 3 films and try to make sense of any of what's going on around him.
You can't. You can't. Final thoughts on the film?
It's bad.
It's bad, but it has a lot more personality than the second one, in my opinion.
Yes, but to dig into that a little bit more, it makes it fun to talk about, but to me, this movie has a lot more that's objectionable than the second, where a lot of the second one is like, okay, yeah, the creature design's cool, the plot's whatever. This one is like, what the hell is going on? And
Well,
I'll Junior, man. Junior, if it weren't for him in this film, I would have said pretty watchable. As it is, I had a very hard time with it.
No, I agree. Like, that definitely was the hardest part. I will say some positives, because I feel like it's only appropriate to say some positives.
Hit me with them.
So the creature, the puppeteer creatures, like, there was like those little dragons in the background. There were other like little monstrosities. Like, everything looked good.
There was the bunny guy.
That was
the scene. The Born to be Wild, man. We totally forgot about it.
How did we forget that?
The best / worst scene in the movie.
Because Junior's having a father and son moment with Rockbiter. And
yeah, so they fire up his like steamroller thing, and it's a diegetic, honest to God, like Rockbiter is singing along to Born to be Wild as he's plowing through the forest and all that.
How do you hear about that?
What is this? What did they just to me, this feels like for some reason they had access to this song and they're like, oh, well, that makes sense for Rockbiter.
Like,
totally out of place.
it gave me Kermit the Frog vibes. Like, just sort of like,
yeah. Speaking of Jim Henson.
yeah, like just the Muppet riding a bike or riding a vehicle, singing along to a song. Because I don't think anybody else sings other than Nicole when she's playing her guitar in the movie.
Yeah.
So, I mean, like,
it's just sort of out of nowhere. You say Muppets, and that makes sense, but it's not an appropriate pivot in my mind from this franchise.
No. Like, I would have almost preferred that they had like a little Rockbiter radio that was like,
I want to hear Rockbiter music. They only have rocks to make the
it's
song.
an avalanche. It's just like the sound of like a rock slide.
Just constant.
Yeah. And they're like, oh yeah, this is a banger.
See, that'd be funny. That makes sense to me.
Yeah. Instead, Born to be Wild. But yes, the bunny. Like, this bunny won't die, first of all. Like, this bunny should have died.
Well, you say first of all, but I also think kind of last of all. That's about the extent of his character.
Yeah, he's just there to be the blunt end of the joke.
Yeah, punching bag.
Yeah.
But we're kind of wrapping up here.
But yeah, like I love the little creatures that are around. I loved the forest set. The forest set looked incredible to me in Fantasia.
Not bad. I think the sets overall took a big hit from the other two movies to this one. The like Fortress of Solitude thing going on with the old man.
It could have been a lot better.
It's okay, but it's also like that's something that so many fantasy movies reach for because I think it is something that's so easy to pull off, at least to that okay level.
Yeah.
Sets overall are definitely weaker in this one.
They are, and the Fortress of Solitude is not as great, but I just genuinely loved the forest more because I feel like that felt like a fantasy forest, while in the last one, it felt more like a jungle forest.
I hear you.
But any last thoughts on your end?
I'm just taking one last pass on my notes here.
Yeah, just
say it's awful convenient that the climax of the movie takes place on Halloween, so nobody's questioning these odd creatures walking around.
I thought that was stupid.
But that's just one in a long string of conveniences that this movie takes.
Yeah, you're not wrong.
Are we ready to give this thing a grade?
I just want to... You want to know what the most common thing I wrote in my notes was?
What?
What the fuck is this?
Just over and over and over.
On this page, I have at least 3 times where I wrote.
Did you compile it to the biggest what the fuck is this moments?
Speaking of what the fuck is this moments, let's grade Falkor.
Got it. Okay, again, this is our notable first, of course, today that we are doing sort of a different grade in that Falkor, we are going to give the movie a grade, but what we're actually doing is grading Falkor from this entire franchise.
Yes.
So that's a little tricky because I think you and I just gut check. If we were to give the Falkor from the first movie a grade, he'd probably score a lot higher than the Falkor from this third movie.
I'd say right off the bat, this isn't giving any away. I'm ranking the Falkors from best to worst. Second one, first one, third one.
I agree. Other than I do think the voice work is a little better in the first one, but that's considered overall. Yeah. So, I mean, I am trying, and I'll explain my methodology as we go here. We have 5 categories to grade each dragon, scale of 1 to 10, or 0 to 10, 0 being abysmal, 10 being incredible. And then we're going to average those out and we'll get the final score for Falkor for the trilogy again.
Yes.
I'll try and explain my methodology. I assume you'll do the same, but the goal here is to take the trilogy and the character as he's represented throughout it as a whole.
Yes.
So that considered, am I going first or are you?
Take the floor, please.
Who went first on the last time we did a grade? It's been a minute.
Well, we did one last week.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I retract that statement.
But go ahead and take the floor. I want to hear.
Okay, so I'm going to start us off here. for design. I really like the design of Falkor in the first 2 movies.
Okay.
He's unusual, which is more of the X Factor thing, but it really holds together. Like his like fluffiness is so, I guess, comforting. And he just immediately pops as a good guy dragon. And then the way that he's labeled as a luck dragon, you see the design and you instantly lock into what they're doing. Like, I can't imagine this guy sliding anybody, doing anything wrong. This is a good guy dragon.
He bullied those bullies.
He to help out his good friend Bastian
By harassing children. Carry on.
Reds is just gonna power through it, man. Yeah, that's actually a good point. But he's just good vibes. Falkor is good vibes, and that a lot of that is conveyed in the design. I appreciate that there are a variety of texture elements. Like, he has the software, but he also has those like pearlescent, like rainbowy scales down him, which is cool. Also, we talked about how the whole concept of cat dragon went so wrong with the 1977 Hobbits adaptation of Smaug. I think that there was a lot of room to go wrong with the concept of dog dragon here, but they knocked it out of the park. I don't like that they changed the design, and I think largely for the worse in the third one, where his face gets a little bit longer, and they changed the nose to where it reads more like a dog.
Yeah.
He also just all around looks a little goofier, I would say. So if I was grading just from those first 2, it'd probably be a little higher, but as it is, I'm still going with an 8.
Wow, an 8. Well, this is going to come to a shock to
I'll try and be a little quicker on the following. But
I am not as hot on the dog dragon look as you are.
So you hate dogs?
I clearly hate dogs. Like, you hate dogs for refusing to get a dog or even consider getting a dog.
I say this, you being the one dog owner of the 2 of us.
Exactly. But like, I'm gonna use the same logic that we said for Catch. I like I like the reptilian look. I appreciate that. I'm not gonna say it looks bad. Like, the first 2 look really good. I'm gonna be giving that more to the special effects though, rather than for the design, because I really am just not that keen. And I feel like this third movie almost solidified that for me, because the special effects just took such a hit. And I think that has more to do with it. And it just is a flying dog that is going around. And I mean,
I think part of the length of him, he has like the long tail. He's sort of the Chinese dragon look, does help him read more dragon-like than big dog. But I hear what you're saying, and that this is very much not your traditional reptilian dragon.
Yes. And so, that being said, if I was to just be doing the first 2, I probably would have given it either like a 5.5 or a 6. But as it stands, I'm giving it a 4.
All right, I'll let the comments take care of you on that one.
Come at me!
Now, for the special effects, we've talked about this quite a bit in each individual movie. I think by and large, the special effects are quite good. In the first one, it's easy to tell that he's a puppet.
Yes.
And that's less and less with each subsequent film. The only objectionable representation of the dragon is when you see him flying, especially in the first movie, where it's such an obvious composite. It looks just like absolute garbage. But when it is the puppet, sure, it doesn't look necessarily realistic, but it looks good. And there's a lot of intricacy to his movement. His speaking is quite quality. I'm going to give it a 7.
Okay. The second Falkor, like, I'm going, and again, I know it is technically designed, but at the same time, I feel like them, since they're not going the computer animation route, bringing to life this dragon being the special effects. I consider puppeteering a special effect, and he looks really good. Like, you can see the individual scales. You can see just the fur. His eye movement looks really legit to me. So, like, in that second one, it was just so good. This last one, the third one, they definitely took a downgrade. It wasn't as great. And I'm not going to lie, if it wasn't for that, I'd give it a 10. I'd give Falkor, but because of the third, it drops it down to an 8.
An
But
8. Ooh, that's a hit.
I think Falkor in the second one is a 10. To bring a dragon to life that way, where it looked.
I hear you. He looks really good in the second one, which is just a shame, because
where is that puppet?
Like I feel like this grade is gonna have like 7 different asterisks next to it.
Yeah.
But we're trying to take it as a whole.
Yeah.
So if we may move on to character.
Yeah.
Falkor's a great character.
He was a great character.
Yeah. Which we're talking about how in some aspects he took a hit into this third one. Has any character fallen from grace so hard in any franchise? My goodness. Like in the first 2 movies, I think we're in like 9-10 out of 10 territory. Yeah. And if I were to give this character a grade, it'd probably be like a 3. He's just so dopey and unpleasant and frankly unfunny.
Yeah.
So I'm still going to give him a 7. But it kills me to go that low.
So you might disagree with me on this. I feel like his character took a hit in the second one. Like he was amazing in the first one. Like he was a really good character. He was dopey, funny, sort of go-lucky sort of guy. In the second one, he literally is almost like Bastian's dog, if he could talk.
He's just kind of like, oh, well, it's a NeverEnding Story movie. We've got to get Falkor in there.
And then in this last one, he barely has a personality.
They shit the bed on the character.
So I'm you might disagree, but I'm going with a 5.
5 for Falkor. It's so tough because I'm rooting for Falkor so hard because of that first movie and partially the second. Like in my head, Falkor is like one of the great movie dragons. But as we're trying to take this whole trilogy in one go, this ain't it, man.
We made the bed. We have to lay in it.
Okay, now here's the moment of truth where we give the media score. So regardless of the character, we're giving a score to the NeverEnding Story trilogy.
I'm really excited to hear
I want to give a bit of an explanation to my methodology.
Okay.
So we already discussed scores of the first 2. So first NeverEnding Story, to me, that's like a really strong 7. Second NeverEnding Story, we're probably at about a 4. This movie, to me, is like a high 2, low 3. Now, Bryce has done this a few times where you can like zoom in on the scenes the dragon is in and maybe emphasize that a little bit more in this particular score.
Yeah.
I'm doing kind of a spin on that where yes, you are taking in this trilogy of films as like this is what this creature is being presented in. So you kind of have to take it in. You have to take the movie in if you want to spend time with Falkor. I would just clarify, though, that past this point in time, I'm probably never going to watch NeverEnding Story 2 or 3 ever again.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not going to cheat so far as to just give him the score of his highest rated movie, but essentially I'm counting that one twice. So I'm giving the high watermark a little bit of extra weight in this score, and I'm going to give the trilogy a 5 out of 10, which translates to okay, which I think accurately represents my feelings. Like, even though the second movie's pretty weak and the third movie is low-key dog shit, I'm still like medium to positive on the NeverEnding Story franchise. What do you think? I'm not expecting you to follow my methodology there.
No.
If you just want to give your 3 scores and then the average of whatever that is.
Here's the thing, like, there's aspects that I have enjoyed about the NeverEnding Story, but I can't say that I'm a big NeverEnding Story fan. And the second one was just such a bore to me that, like, the third one was more exciting to me to watch. I know the third one was worse, but I prefer, like, I had more fun watching it. And if I have to have more fun watching arguably, like, not even arguably, the worst movie out of the three, like, I'm giving it a 4. Like, it's mediocre. Like, I'm sorry, guys. I know there's a lot of you that love the NeverEnding Story, but it's mid.
I think anybody who's a big enough fan of the films to have seen all 3 will forgive us.
I don't know, because I've told a lot of people that were talking about the NeverEnding Story, like, oh, I love the NeverEnding Story. Those movies mean so much to me. And I think that they forget that there was a third one.
Yeah, that's funny. I mean, you deal with like memory and stuff in the second one. This movie is not very well remembered.
No. Well,
it wasn't well seen. There's not even a way to watch this movie in HD, as far as I'm aware. Like, let alone a Blu-ray release. You cannot pay to watch this movie in HD.
Well, and not only, I think it's the same idea with the animated Lord of the Rings. People just have this image in their head, and I still have people in the comments of like our videos saying, you guys don't understand, this is a great movie, I love it. I'm like,
I'm very happy for them.
Okay.
Again, have you watched it in the last 5 years?
Comment below.
X Factor on Falkor. And if I may lead us off.
Yeah,
you have,
go ahead. No, go,
you
no.
have just this blazing hot.
No, go ahead. I want to hear it.
Falkor is a very unique dragon.
Very.
He's a dog dragon, and he's a dog dragon done right.
Yes.
I've already talked about, I mean, he's getting some extra credit in this category, just spill over from the design for me. I think that he has an energy to him that's very exciting. I think his place within this story is very fun. And even though there's a little bit of nonsense going on there, I have to just admit that it works for me on a gut level. And there is no dragon like Falkor.
Yes.
And that goes beyond design. It's just like in his being, I guess, just to use the most generic term possible. Like, how often do you even run across a dragon that's like this, not just good, but like chill?
Yeah.
You know, and this is a being of power, but he's just good vibes, man. I'm a luck dragon. I'm here to help people out. Truly, I don't think that we're ever going to run into a dragon even remotely like this, and I'm giving him a 10 out of 10 in the X Factor.
Wow.
Now, part of that may be just because I really am rooting for this dragon, but I think I'm justified in that.
I mean, it's our podcast. We can do whatever we want. I will just disagree.
All right, hit me with your take.
I do agree. And I have a very, I want to almost hear your thoughts on this as well. Falkor's ability of being a luck dragon in the first movie almost makes him a lesser version of the Orin, where it's not necessarily he's granting wishes, but everything around him seems to go right.
He's like Excalibur in Quest for Kamala. It's just, things are just better when you have Falkor around.
Exactly. And I don't think we're necessarily going to see that level. And he is sort of like this jolly, happy dragon. Like, we don't really see anything like that. And even though like we get less and less of his actual humor, he still is a jolly, happy guy
he's like Santa Claus.
Yeah.
And that's not how you would describe most dragons in film.
No, not at all.
But it works.
And it does work. So based off of that, I'm not going to be going and giving him a 1-0, but I'm giving it an 8.
Solid.
Which that leaves us to
the final score for Falkor in the trilogy of the NeverEnding Story to a 6.6 out of 10.
Respectable.
Considering the sequels, I think he made it out pretty darn well.
He did.
And, you know, if you feel insulted by that score, then you can probably just assume that you'd like add a full point if we were just grading him from the first movie.
Yeah. Or go watch the third one and understand.
But I think that's going to do it for this episode.
Yeah. What
Bryce,
do we cover next week, Austin?
Oh, my goodness. Next week.
Or do we want to save it?
No, people need to know. They need to mark their calendars.
Okay.
It's spooky season. We're kind of recording things out of order, but the next episode to debut features a dragon, very briefly, a skeleton dragon, no less. And it is one of the very most spooky films, a personal favorite of mine. We are going to be talking about Clive Barker's Hellraiser. Now, I just want to prep everybody. I think that we haven't recorded it yet. I think that has potential to be maybe our most entertaining episode yet, because this is one of my very favorite films. And also Bryce has never seen it.
Nope.
And Bryce does not like horror movies.
Nope.
And we're going to do a reaction to go with all of that, and it's going to be glorious. So please look forward to that. Bryce, do you have a prompt for the audience to close us out?
Now that we finished the NeverEnding Story, what's your favorite memory from the NeverEnding Story? What's your favorite moment?
Sure. From our podcast, from the show, any of it.
Yeah. Are you glad that it ended? Like, what's...
Oh my goodness. Can you imagine if we continued on this trajectory, if there was a fourth?
Austin, they are continuing on this trajectory.
Yeah, I think it's a reboot.
It's a
reboot.
But it's a reboot. And that means that it has the potential to... It's never ending. It's never ending. They restarted. It's not ended. It's restarted.
They just took a break. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for listening. We'll see you next week for that very special episode.
Good night.
That's all for this week's Dragon Lore. Takes cold and hot, spread shore to shore. Enjoyed yourself? Please join the squad. Follow on social media at BigLizPod. And one quick reminder before you go, to rate, review, and share the show. Thank you for listening. It means a lot. See you next week. Same time, same spot.